The year was 1981, and the air in a quiet Texas border town carried the same easy warmth that had comforted families for decades. But on one bright summer day, something occurred that would wound a family forever. 3 identical boys vanished without a sound. Their small feet had been running on the grass of their front yard only minutes earlier. And then silence followed, where laughter had filled the air. Their names were Lucas Noah and Gabriel Marlowe. They were only 6 years old, triplets with wide eyes and matching curls, always seen together, never apart, and the town knew them as inseparable spirits. That afternoon their parents, Evie and Walter, believed the neighborhood was safe, as it always had been. Children played freely in every yard, doors remained unlocked, and trust hung thick in the air. Yet within 1 hour that trust broke. The boys were gone, and though the town searched endlessly, the mystery remained unsolved. Decades passed, no answers came. Police files collected dust. Every lid collapsed into nothingness. Yet one mother never stopped watching, never stopped searching, never stopped hoping. 30 years later, at an ordinary neighborhood gathering, that mother looked upon something so small, yet so haunting, that her entire world tilted. What she saw shook her soul and reignited a nightmare that had never truly gone quiet. The afternoon. Sun poured heavily on the Rodriguez family yard, just outside Laredo. It was the birthday of young Tommy Rodriguez, and the neighborhood gathered as they always did. Folding chairs dotted the lawn, balloons twisted in the breeze, and children squealed as they ran across the grass with paper plates in hand. At the edge of the crowd, 60-year-old Evie Marlowe stood with her wide-brimmed hat shading a face marked by years of longing. Lines framed her eyes, not from joy alone, but from 3 decades of searching faces in crowds, always hoping to see the 3 sons stolen from her embrace. Beside the grill, her husband Walter, now gray at the temples, wore the patience of a man who had carried grief like a second skin. Neighbors chatted, laughter floated, but Evie's gaze never rested. Her eyes moved constantly, as though waiting for a shadow to step out of the past. She adjusted her hat when the patio door opened, and a man she did not recognize stepped outside. At his side clutched the hand of a boy no older than 8. The father announced they were late and explained a minor delay, but Evie's focus was already narrowing. The boy broke free of his father's hand and darted across the grass toward the other children. As he passed her, her breath caught violently. He wore green checkered overalls with yellow straps over a long-sleeved shirt, exactly like the ones her triplets had worn on the day they disappeared. The pattern, the cut, even the vibrant straps. For a moment, the air folded inward and time collapsed. She lunged forward before her body even registered the movement. Her hand landed gently on the child's shoulder, and she spun him softly toward her. "Where did you get those clothes?" she whispered, her voice thin and trembling. Her hand reached toward his curls, curls that mirrored the soft waves of her missing boys. The boy's eyes widened in fear. He tore away from her grasp and bolted toward his father. "Daddy, Daddy," "She scared me." His father's expression hardened as he rushed to shield the boy. "Ma'am, what are you doing? Why did you grab my son?" His tone held caution, confusion, and protective fury. Evie opened her mouth, but words failed. Her eyes stayed glued to the overalls. Her hand lifted again, as if reaching for a memory stitched into fabric. Walter appeared quickly, sensing distress. He placed a steadying arm around her shoulders and apologized to the man. "My wife did not mean harm. Forgive her. It is just those clothes." His voice lowered with pain. "Our triplets wore outfits like that. Green overalls, yellow straps. They vanished in 1981. The yard grew silent. Neighbors turned, whispers spread, and the man holding his son softened his expression with reluctant compassion. He explained. He had purchased the outfit at a store and could not recall which one. Evie pleaded to see the tag, desperate for proof, but Walter gently calmed her. "Sweetheart, that boy is not Lucas. He is not Noah. He is not Gabriel. Do not frighten him more." Her hands trembled as Mrs. Rodriguez, the host, placed a hand on her arm, urging her to rest. Walter guided her home through the heavy quiet of 3 blocks that felt like miles. Inside their modest house, Walter prepared tea while Evie collapsed onto the couch. Tears blurred her vision as she whispered, "I did not mean to scare that child. It was just those clothes. I cannot let go, Walter. I see them everywhere." He held her hand firmly. "I felt it too. Those straps, that pattern, it struck. Like a memory we did not ask for." Evie straightened suddenly. "I want to see the photographs again. The ones where they wore those outfits." Walter hesitated, but eventually agreed. He climbed the attic ladder and returned with the dust-covered box filled with relics of a life interrupted. Toys, drawings, matching stuffed bears, and finally, a leather-bound album emerged. They sat side by side and opened it, the first page showing newborns swaddled side by side. Each turn revealed frozen moments of crawling, toddling, laughing, birthdays, celebrated together. Then came the image they sought, the triplets in matching green overalls with yellow straps, standing proudly before their home. Their arms linked, their smiles unbreakable. Walter's voice cracked. "This photo was taken the morning they disappeared." Evie leaned closer. Her eyes scanned not only the boys, but the background. Her breath stilled. "Walter, look." The car, the reddish Cadillac, barely visible behind the children, stood the glimmering front of a car. Walter narrowed his gaze. Lucas adored that car. He begged me always to stop when we passed it. That belonged to Mr. Howard Fielding, their schoolteacher. His Cadillac was famous around town. Evie's eyes darkened. But Howard had already moved away before this photo, had he not? The school held a farewell for him the day before. Why is his Cadillac here? Walter faltered. The timeline buckled beneath suspicion. He searched the box again and pulled an old Kodak envelope. The faded stamp proved the film had been developed 2 days after the disappearance. The photo was real. Evie shook violently. If that was Howard's car, then he saw something, perhaps more. Why did the police never question him? Walter tried to soothe her with rational doubts, suggesting coincidences, similar models, visitors, but Evie's certainty deepened. No one else owned that model. I knew every neighbor. That was his Cadillac. She could not dismiss it. Later that evening, while Walter prepared for a medical appointment, Evie received a message from Louise Mitchell, an old friend from the school board. She called her immediately and steered the conversation toward Howard. Louise recalled him fondly, but revealed something Evie had not known. He had not transferred to another school. Instead, he had moved to rural Texas and started a private charity farm called Howard's Haven for Hope, dedicated to helping immigrant youth. Evie froze at the revelation. She searched the website on the old family computer and found smiling photographs of boys working in fields. The mission sounded pure, the images wholesome, but one detail held her Howard's face, aged yet unmistakable. The site listed an address nearby. Evie felt her gut tighten. She called Walter and insisted they visit. Despite his reluctance, he agreed. The next day they drove to the farm, passing silos and endless crops. A wooden sign read, Howard's Haven for Hope. The property contained barns, dormitories, and a farmhouse. A young man greeted them kindly and explained Howard was away at the county fair promoting the program. Walter requested a tour, and they followed him through stables and crop rows. The mission sounded noble. Yet inside a colorful barn used for children's crafts, they met Ferdinand, the activities coordinator. He smiled brightly, curly black hair bouncing, his gestures expressive. Evie's chest constricted. His mannerisms, his curls, his smile, they felt painfully familiar. On the wall hung children's artwork. One piece arrested her gaze, a detailed red Cadillac crafted from rice grains. Ferdinand admitted he had made it as an example. Evie whispered, "That was Howard's car." A chill gripped her. She stared at Ferdinand again, the curve of his smile, the life in his hands. Her voice quivered. "Do you have siblings?" Ferdinand chuckled and replied he had brothers, one of whom was at the fair with Howard. Evie's pulse quickened as Walter and Evie left the property. Her mind roared with possibility. "Walter," she whispered in the car. "When I looked at him, I saw Lucas." Walter dismissed the thought with logic, but doubt gnawed at both. The road stretched toward the county fair where Howard's booth awaited. Children laughed, rides spun, and booths lined the field. Among them stood a tent marked with the banner, "Howard's Haven for Hope." Outside it, Howard Fielding himself conversed with visitors. His hair had turned white, lines etched his face, but his presence was unchanged. Evie recognized him instantly. They approached cautiously. Howard greeted them with polite confusion until memory returned. He recalled their sons' names with warmth, yet when questioned about the Cadillac in the photo, his demeanor cooled. He denied memory, insisted the car must belong to another. His answers felt rehearsed. Then Evie caught a fragment of his voice, urgent, whispered into a phone behind the tent. "Leave immediately after the performance. Get Diego here." Her blood ran cold. Minutes later, children performed on a small stage, singing sweet songs, but Evie's eyes locked on the movement near vendor stalls. A man with thick dark curls moved quickly. His resemblance to Ferdinand was undeniable. Walter whispered, "That must be his brother." Evie's heart pounded. Twins or more? They watched as the man spoke with Howard before leaving briskly. Suspicion clawed deeper, seeking answers. Evie returned to the booth and asked an older staff member about Ferdinand and the man she saw. The man smiled and said casually, "They are not twins. They are triplets." Evie's world collapsed. The fairground buzzed with color and noise, but Evie Marlowe heard only the echo of one sentence. "They are not twins, they are triplets." Her chest tightened, her breath quickened. She turned slowly toward Walter, who stood pale and motionless, his lips parting with disbelief. The world spun around them, children laughing, banners flapping, livestock bellowing, but time inside them had stalled. For 30 years she had lived in shadow, yearning for any sign of her sons. Now an old farm worker had casually confirmed what her heart already feared. Ferdinand, the young man with a wide smile. Diego, the figure moving urgently through the crowd. And a third, hidden somewhere close. Triplets, the right age, the right resemblance. The truth pressed against her ribs until she thought she might. Shattered, she clutched Walter's hand, whispering fiercely, "They are ours. I know it. Ferdinand is Lucas. Diego is Noah. And the third, the one unseen, is Gabriel. He is alive. They are alive." Walter's jaw tightened. His rational mind wanted to resist, but his eyes told another story. He had seen it too, the familiar smile, the gestures, the curl of hair that mirrored his voice. His hand gripped hers with unsteady force. "If this is true," he murmured, "then we cannot act alone. We must be careful." But caution was already slipping through Evie's veins. The urgency of a mother long silenced consumed her. She pressed forward through the crowd, her gaze darting for another glimpse of Howard Fielding. a teacher who had once been adored, the man who had left town just as her sons disappeared. They found him at the booth again, smiling politely at families, speaking of hope and healing, his voice smooth, his hands gesturing with ease. But when his eyes flickered toward Evie and Walter, a brief shadow crossed his expression. He turned away swiftly, murmuring to an aide, before shifting his attention back to visitors. That Walter pulled Evie aside. "We need the police." "Not accusations. Not here in the open." Evie shook her head. "He will vanish again. I heard him on the phone. He is planning something. If we wait too long, we may lose them forever." Her voice trembled but burned with resolve. They hurried from the booth to a quiet corner near the parking area. With trembling fingers, Evie dialed 911. Her voice broke as she told the dispatcher her story, naming Howard, describing Ferdinand and Diego, recounting the photograph with the Cadillac, the resemblance of the men, and the confirmation that they were triplets. Within moments, she was transferred to Detective Martinez from the Missing Persons Unit. His voice was calm, authoritative. "Stay where you are. Do not confront him directly. Deputies are being dispatched. We will handle this." Walter nodded, in agreement, but Evie could not be still. Her eyes swept the fair until she spotted Howard again. This time he was speaking urgently with Diego, the brother who had arrived minutes earlier. Their conversation was sharp, filled with gestures and tense expressions. Then, without warning, both men broke away from the booth and headed swiftly toward the parking lot. "They are leaving," Evie gasped. She gripped Walter's sleeve. "If we lose them now, it will all slip away." Walter guided her to their car, parked beneath trees near the edge of the fairground. They climbed inside, watching from behind the windshield as Howard, Ferdinand, and Diego gathered at a gleaming car. Evie's chest tightened. It was the same Cadillac. Time had not erased its lines or its shine. It stood like a ghost from her past, parked brazenly in the open. She pressed the phone tighter to her ear. "Detective, they are leaving now. They are at the car. All three of them." "Stay where you are," Martinez commanded firmly. "Deputies are seconds away. Do not move." As if on cue, 2 sheriff cruisers pulled into the gravel lot, lights flashing. They blocked the Cadillac just as the trunk was slammed shut over duffel bags. Officers stepped out with cautious hands near holsters. Howard raised his palms in feigned calmness, his face twisted in irritation masked as confusion. Ferdinand and Diego lingered behind him, their eyes darting with uncertainty. The sheriff's voice carried across the lot, demanding identification, questioning Howard about the young men. Howard responded smoothly, insisting on his role as caretaker, dismissing suspicion with practiced ease. Walter leaned forward, his voice low. "They are hesitating. They respect him. They do not know his history. He will talk his way free." Evie's blood surged. She could not watch 30 years of agony dismissed as misunderstanding. She flung open the car door and strode into the lot, ignoring Walter's call behind her. Her heart pounded, but her voice rose steady and fierce. "Howard Fielding." She cried. Heads turned, deputies stiffened. Howard froze, his mask cracking as he recognized her. Evie lifted the photograph in her trembling hand, holding it high for all to see. "These are my sons, Lucas, Noah, and Gabriel. They vanished in 1981. This was taken the morning they disappeared." "And there," her voice broke with fury as she pointed toward the Cadillac, "is your car in the frame? The same car you still drive. The same car you used to steal them." Gasps spread. Deputies closed in. Ferdinand and Diego stared at the photograph, their expressions shifting from confusion to stunned recognition. Ferdinand stepped forward slowly, whispering hoarsely, "That is us. That is me. That is Diego." The older deputy glanced between. Them, then back at Howard. Is this true? Howard's face hardened. His voice erupted. I saved them. They were abandoned, left to suffer. I gave them a life. I protected them. Evie's voice broke through with raw grief. You did. Not save them. You stole them. You told them lies. You ripped them from our arms. Tears streamed down her cheeks as she faced Ferdinand and Diego. You were never abandoned. You were loved every single day. You were searched for every single hour. I never stopped looking. The deputies moved swiftly. Howard was restrained, his hands cuffed behind his back as he continued to protest. Forensic teams were called. The farm and private estate were secured. Inside Howard's office, investigators discovered forged documents, fake identities, and hidden license plates. In the garage, the Cadillac gleamed under dust, the same cherry red as in the photo. But Evie's eyes searched only for one more face. Ferdinand and Diego stood nearby, their features softening as realization tore apart decades of lies. Yet one brother remained absent. The staff member had spoken of a third who stayed at a private house. Gabriel. Minutes later, a call came from the search team at Howard's private estate. We found him, along with other children, all safe, all being transported. Evie's knees buckled with relief. Walter caught her as she collapsed into his arms, sobbing. They are alive, all three of them. Alive. Hours later, at the police station under harsh fluorescent lights, Evie and Walter waited in a quiet room. Detective Martinez entered, his expression solemn yet softened by compassion. Mr. and Mrs. Marlowe, he said, they are ready to see you now. The door opened. 3 grown men stepped hesitantly inside. Ferdinand, Diego, and Gabriel. The years had shaped them into adults, but in their eyes lingered the innocence of the boys who had once run laughing across a Texas yard. Lucas's unmistakable, wide smile trembled with emotion. Noah's thoughtful gaze searched the faces of the parents he thought lost. Gabriel, smaller, quieter, lingered at the back, his eyes filled with fear and wonder. For a moment, no one moved. Then Evie rose on shaking legs. A sob burst from her chest. My boys, she whispered. My beautiful boys. She crossed the room and gathered them into her arms, Walter joining, tears streaming freely down his face. The family clung together, 30 years of loss collapsing into one overwhelming embrace. I never stopped looking. Evie cried into their shoulders. Not for one day, not for one moment. Gabriel's voice cracked softly. We thought you were gone. He told us. You were criminals. He told us lies. Walter's voice shook but held strength. We were never gone. We waited. We searched. We prayed. And now we are whole again. The room filled with sobs, with whispered apologies, with words too long delayed. Outside, the Texas night stretched vast and indifferent, but inside, under sterile light, a miracle had taken root. A broken family, torn apart by obsession and deceit, stood together once more. Not healed entirely, but whole again. For the first time in 30 years, the Marlowe family could begin again.